Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our next session on ABAP learning series. So today we are going to discuss regarding the inheritance. Okay. So inheritance. So to understand the inheritance, there are two things we need to understand first. Just give me a minute. Okay. Yes. So there are two things we need to understand first. One is generalization and specialization. Okay, these are the two things we need to understand first. So what is generalization? So when you are saying a vehicle, that is a car also is a vehicle, a truck also a vehicle, a bus also a vehicle. So everything is vehicle. So when you say all vehicles, that means you are generalizing it, whether it is a car, truck, bus, or any SUV, MUV, everything. But when you say it's a car, then you are specializing some attributes of the vehicle which define a particular set of vehicles, right? Similarly, when you say trucks, it defines some particular set of vehicles. Okay, so this is the generalization and specializations. So that means when you have a class vehicle and when you create an object of type vehicle, then it might be a car, or it might be a truck, or it might be a bus, anything, right? And when you create another class as car, then as both are vehicles, they have some properties in common, right? So inheritance help us to access the common properties from class vehicle to class car. Okay, so if you go by the definition, so specialization describes a relationship in which one class, that is subclass, inherits all the main characteristics of another class, that is superclass. Okay, so in this case, the vehicle is a superclass, and car, truck, bus, those are subclass, right? So here it is. And the subclass can also add new components, that is attributes or methods and so on. As you can see, the car has seats, but the truck has number of tanks, cargo capacity, and everything. And bus has passengers, whether it has entertainment system or not, whether it has lavatory or not. And the methods are also different. So when it comes to car, it says get type of car. When it comes to truck, it says get cargo, that means get the cargo capacity. And when it is coming to bus, the method is different. Get passengers means how much people it can carry, 50 passenger, 54 passenger, 60 passenger, like that. Okay, so in this case, the subclass have inherited some common properties or methods. Apart from that, they will add some attributes and some methods which are specific to that particular subclass. Okay, so specialization is an implementation relationship that emphasizes the similarities of the classes. In the above example, you can see the common component of classes like car, truck, bus are defined in the diagram: make, model, serial number, color, right? So those are the common properties. So what is the characteristics of generalization and specialization? If you see, these common components only exist once in the superclass, right? So they can be maintained centrally, and components in the superclass are available in all subclasses, right? So you must be careful to avoid redundant implementations. Okay, and subclass contains extensions and changes. and subclass are dependent on superclass, right? So generalization, specialization provide a significant better structure for your software because commonly used elements only need to be stored once in a central locations, that is in the superclasses, and these elements are then automatically available to all subclasses. Changes made at a later stage have an immediate effect on the subclasses. Therefore, you do not alter the semantics when you change a superclass. So what is a semantics? So let's say you have a method in superclass and every method has few parameters. Okay, so your method has two parameters in the superclass, but when you implement it in subclass, also the two methods, and when you call the same method in subclass, it will have two parameters. Let's say you have one superclass and two subclasses. So when you change the parameters, list of parameters of the method in superclass, then in subclass also the methods need to be called using the same parameters, else it will give runtime error. Okay, so that is why you need to be very careful, and SAP recommends do not alter the semantics when you change a superclass. Okay, so for that you need knowledge of implementation of superclass to decide whether the inherited components from the superclass are sufficient for the subclass or if they must be extended, that is generalization or specialization. Therefore provide strong links between the superclass and subclass. So in ABAP objects, an inheritance relationship is defined for a subclass using the inheriting from addition. So as you can see, right, so this is class LCL vehicle definition and this is LCL truck definition, inheriting from LCL vehicle. So this is the extension need to be used, followed by the subclass directly. Okay, so in ABAP objects, an inheritance relationship is defined for a subclass using the inheriting from addition, followed by the superclass directly above the subclass. So after this inheriting from, you are using the superclass, right? That is what it says. Usually inheritance hierarchies of varying complexity can be created when a superclass inherits from another superclass. That means this superclass LCL vehicle can be inheriting from another class. Okay, that means A is superclass of B, B is superclass of C. That is possible. And this inheritance helps us to implement generalization and specialization relationship between classes. A superclass is a generalization of its subclasses, and the subclasses are in turn different specializations of their superclasses. Thus, addition or changes are permitted in the subclasses, but you can never remove anything from a superclass in a subclass. Okay, inheritance is one-sided relationship. Subclasses recognize their direct superclasses, but superclasses do not recognize their subclasses. So now we all understood what is generalization and what is specialization, right? And the next concept or next most important characteristics of inheritance is redefinition of methods. Okay, so redefinition is when the implementation, so here you can see, okay, how it is the redefinitions of methods are being done. So what is redefinition? Redefinition is when the implementation of an inherited instance method is changed for the subclass without changing the signature. Okay, that means in the superclass you have a method display underscore attributes. The same method you can redefine in the subclass, but you cannot change the parameters of this method. Okay, because the visibility section for the superclass must remain the same. Therefore redefinition is not possible within the private section. So what is private section? So yesterday when we have discussed the different visibility sections of a class, there are three components. Okay, three visibility section. One is public, one is protected, and one is private. So when it is public, these attributes or methods can be called from anywhere in the program, outside class as well. Okay, when it is protected, the subclass can have access of those properties from the superclass. But when it is private, the private properties or attributes only visible inside the class. You cannot access those details outside of this class. Okay, so when it comes to normal methods, you can redefine those methods in the subclass. Okay, so in ABAP there is a special kind of methods we have discussed, and we call them as constructor. Okay, the constructors is not inherited like normal classes. Any class can define its own constructor that is fully independent from the definition of the constructor in its superclass. Okay, a subclass can even define a constructor if there is no constructor in the superclass. However, when implementing the subclass constructor, it is mandatory to call the constructor of the immediate superclass. By doing so, it is ensured that the constructor of the class is always executed, whether the created object is an instance of the class itself or an instance of one of its subclasses. Okay, I know this statements I am saying is little complex. Okay, so we will understand this when we discuss about the castings. Okay, but just remember these things. Okay, whenever you are creating a subclass constructor, then it is always advisable to add the constructor of the superclass as well. Why? Because the subclass constructor generally adds parameters to the signature of the superclass constructor rather than completely changing it. So how it affects the static components in inheritance? Okay, so you need to remember, a class that defines a public or protected static attribute share the attributes with all its subclasses. First thing, and static methods you cannot redefine in the subclass. Okay, let me write it down. Okay, so all the public and protected attributes being shared with all the subclasses. Okay, and the next one is static methods cannot be redefined. And then the static constructor of a superclass is executed when the superclass or one of the subclass is accessed for the first time. And then a subclass can always have a static constructor, and this is irrespective of superclass. And there is this is most important point now I am going to mention. If a subclass and its superclass both have a static constructor, then both the constructors are executed when we access the subclass for the first time. Okay, If access to the subclass and the subclass static constructor occur at the same time, the superclass static constructor will be executed first. Okay, that means when you access a subclass component, first the static constructor of the superclass will be executed, then static constructor of the subclass will be executed, then instance constructor of the subclass will be executed, and at the end the instance constructor of the superclass will be executed. Okay, this is the sequence, but the instance constructors can be executed by calling this constructor as a method as well. Okay, so that is all for today's session, and tomorrow we will see how we can write programs using the inheritances. Okay, till then, take care and find some more information regarding inheritance, because there are a lot of points we have missed, because I want to keep this thing simple, right? So whatever is necessary for a fresher or beginner of ABAP consultant, everything will be covered, and whatever we have discussed today is more than sufficient what you need when you have when you are a beginner to 3 to 4 years of experience consultant. Okay, so don't worry about that. Okay, we'll again see in the next session. Till then, take care. Bye.